today's podcast, we have a special guest. We have Johnny.
Itureria.
Itureria. I always say Itururia. I'm like, I know
And
it's
that's fine, right? A lot of people.
Itureria. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a special guest, Johnny. I call him Johnny on the spot because he likes to do things on the spot. So we're going to be talking about real estate, and specifically, you're in the lending business.
Right.
You just recently became an owner.
Yeah. Well, I used to work retail outfits, right? What retail is, you work for a company, right? And that, you have your whatever manager, and then they have their manager, and then they have their underwriters, and they have a lot more overhead, right? So to be honest with you, I was scared. I was scared to go on my own, right?
Yeah.
Because things were so busy, right? And you didn't want to become a broker because you thought, man, I don't want to close late. You heard some horror stories about, people being backed up, and I didn't know the system. So I was comfortable. And I hate to say it, my rates were higher because of that, right? Because I worked for a retail outfit, right? So when things slowed down in real estate, which was this year, in February, I said, it's time to go on my own. Why I did that? Because I'm free to basically offer my clients the benefits of a better rate, better fees, more programs, right? It opened the door for me, I-10 loans, commercial loans, bank statement loans, 1099 loans, loans like that I didn't have before. Not only that is I had the flexibility on interest rates too, right? Where I don't have a middleman. And some of these, what we call retail banks, they do have a middleman, right?
Sure.
Who do they have? They have their manager, then the area manager, and then the area manager's grandma. No, I'm kidding. And then everybody's medical insurance.
Right.
Then some people are on salaries. Then you got to pay your office space. So whose pocket does that really come out of? I hate to say it, is the buyers, right? Because they're gonna pay for everybody that gets paid for that.
They're paying a higher premium for everything. Basically.
They are, because for that bank, that retail outfit to operate, everybody has to get paid.
Sure.
And that just trickles down to, like I just said, I had named how many people need to get paid.
Well, let's back up for a bit, because you mentioned you used to do retail, and how long ago did you start doing lending, and how did you get into lending in the first place?
Well, I got into lending. I got out of college in '93. Didn't have a job. Pablo's a substitute teacher. As embarrassing as that was.
Right on. I used to do it too.
Embarrassing, but for myself, I mean,
do you remember what your daily rate was?
Well,
can you recall?
Well, what happened was for a whole year, I became a temporary sub at Arvin.
Oh, so you're like a long-term sub.
Kindergarten, because I spoke Spanish, and it was the greatest thing for me, Pablo, because I work 8 to 12.
Yeah.
8 to 12. I got the full pay, right? Plus, in kindergarten, they have, an instructional aide.
Yeah.
She was really the teacher, right?
Right.
Well, I loved it, right? Because
so
I get to work at 8.
Half day, you had the help.
Yeah, and at that time, I remember exactly how much money I made. I made $110 a day. At that time, it's a lot of money, right? I'm like, shit, $110 a day. I work 4 hours, and I used to like to play golf. So I'm like, shoot, man, I'm home.
You got the rest of the day to play golf.
I'm home by 1. As soon as that bell rang, I was out of that class, right?
I was getting 120 for like day to day, 125. I think it's like close.
But
to
you're in the 2000s.
I think it's like close to 200 now. A day. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. I did it for a while, just supplemental income.
Well, I did it because I didn't have a job. And, I was getting tired of it because, I was, 20 something years old, right? Probably you go in, these kids didn't respect you. And that's why I hated it, right? I hated it, but I had I needed to have a job, right?
Did you go to college?
I did.
What did you get your
I got a degree in business management.
Okay.
Yeah. So
degree. You're doing it now.
Yeah, managing myself, and I like that. I like to be my own boss, right? It does feel good, right? Yep. And not only that, it's just this pushing the savings down to my buyers, right? So I'm seeing, you see an estimate somebody gets, and it's like, hey, this is what I can do for you, and here's the difference, right? So. Right. And I've seen that's the big change. But going back, right, how I got into lending, right? So 1994, again, sub teacher. I laugh about that, but
I can't picture you doing that.
I was more of a golfer, but I sucked in golf, right? You know, so anyway, my buddy called me. He worked for what they call a subprime lender, and a lot of people don't know what that is.
I know
Back in the
exactly
day,
what it
these
is.
subprime lenders, man, it was, you know, I didn't know anything about lending, right? I didn't know anything about lending, right? So all we did was telemarket and get our loans, right? Because my buddy called me, and go, hey, you need someone to speak Spanish. I'm like, shit, I'm all over it.
Yep.
Went there, never had any intention in staying, right? I didn't know what a loan officer was, right? They said, hey, just follow the script. I'm like, all right, you know. So they had a script that we would follow, right? And so I got into it. I liked it, and then I moved up to the Bay Area because. When I worked for this company, our manager transferred. He goes, hey, come with me. I said, all right, I'm ready to get out of Bakersfield, right? You know? And that's when I started realizing that, you know, how much, you know, how everything works, I guess, right? You know, and I said, okay. So when I was up there, I went into brokering loans, and I loved it, right? Because there you're your own man, right? Yeah, you know, you work for a company, right? But you're basically you're wholesaling the interest rate, right? You can, I hate to use the word, make whatever you want to make, right?
Sure.
You know, so that's the thing. And
well, you in lending, you guys are like in real estate, you're commission based,
right?
So you get a percentage, and
right.
You're in the service industry, so you're serving these loans. So you've been doing lending for how many years now?
So what, 2000, I don't know if it was 94 or 95. I think it was 1994. Might have been 93.
Okay.
And what are we in? I forgot
so
what year we're
okay.
in.
So you started about 10 years before I started doing real estate. You started doing lending. So I wanted to ask you, you know, currently what are we? Are we in a recession? Because I'm not hearing recession in the news a whole lot. I heard it maybe a year ago, but people are still asking that question. So you know,
well,
I'm gonna start asking.
what's a recession?
I'm asking you what.
Well,
what
so
do you,
I mean, what our government's trying to do? We have a problem with inflation, right? Which is going to lead to a recession, right? Are we there? No. Our government. What's been happening is the interest rates have been rising, right? Big time, right?
inflation, interest rates.
The reason why is our government wants to raise rates to slow the economy down, right? You slow the economy down, and I hate to say this, people start losing jobs. And tomorrow being the first Friday of the month, it comes the jobs report, right?
Yeah.
And
so today we're shooting this November 1st, so tomorrow's November 2nd.
yes.
So by the time people see this, it'll be past November 2nd.
Well, but you always have to remember it's the first Friday of the month.
First
Usually,
Friday of the month, okay.
99% of the time, it's first Friday of every month is jobs report. And what our government's wanting to see is, and a lot of people don't know this, Pablo, is they want that unemployment number to go up.
Because that's a sign that inflation's
right. Well,
coming down.
And then, well, that's one of the indicators of inflation, right? Is that, and then it's called the CPI index, Consumer Price Index, which probably rolls out on the 14th of this month. Because
so what happened that starts to slow down, and then people start losing jobs, essentially.
Right.
So it's not like it's not like government is saying, "Hey, we're firing a bunch of people." It's more of an indicator of what they're trying to do.
Right.
Slow things down.
They want to slow it down
because of inflation.
They want to slow it. And prices got. I mean, you know, I always give the example. I was telling my brother this. I used to go to McDonald's. And you get that 99-cent double cheeseburger.
Yeah,
99 cents, right? You can get it for 99 cents.
Do you remember when the Whopper was $1? Remember when the Whopper was 99?
I mean, this is like 3 years ago. I'm not talking like 10 years ago. Like we were talking earlier, how much the teacher used to get paid, right? Well, no, we're talking 3 years ago, right? So that little 99-cent double cheeseburger, Pablo, now I see it's like you buy two for $3.75. Like $3.75.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost doubled, right? You know, that's just that's just the easy example of it, right?
Yeah.
And then you see these ads, right? You know, I'm just talking fast food now, but it's everything, right? You see an ad, it's like $7 for a combo. $7 for a combo. I remember they used to be like $2.99 or $1.99, right? You get a hamburger, fries, and a Coke, right? Now it's like $7 and that's a deal, you know? So they got to slow that down, right? And what we're seeing, what I was showing you earlier today is the 10-year yield, right? I
Yeah.
don't know
So
if you guys can see
explain that in layman's term. What is the
So,
10-year yield, and
okay,
why is that important?
because it's kind of it's
It's a little more
what the
technical.
bank's lending their money at, kind of, and there's a spread to that, right?
Okay.
So the United States high, right? When you go to back in the 80s where interest rates were 19, 18, 70%, in 1982, the 10-year yield was at 13.85%. At the lowest, mark, what are we looking at here? The lowest, it looks like maybe right here. In 2000, right here, 2019. And I think it's been lower than this. I thought it was 0.34. In June of 2020, the 10-year yield was 0.67.
0.67.
Last week, our 10-year yield hit a 20-year high. We were at 5%. And I was telling you guys today when I walked in, the last couple of days, we've seen that 10-year yield. Right now, we're at 4.66. The lower that yield, the lower the rates. The rates start trickling down. It's not like you can get a 4.66 rate, but it's an indicator of, I always tell people, hey, today it's the bonds at 4.66. If that keeps dropping, the rates are dropping, right? And it's not like 1%, right?
Yeah.
So if that goes down to 4%, you're going to see rates
Sure.
back in the in the 5s and the 4s, right? So
It's funny. I'm trying to get like maybe like a metaphor going here, but you see these yield rates the way I see, because I'm doing more real estate, I'm doing flipping. I look at price per square footage.
Oh, right.
Whereas most people will see like the bigger picture. Oh, how much is that house? And I go, yes, you look at the price of the home, but I'm looking at price per square footage, because every property that I've made a profit on has been 100 or less price per square foot
when you pick it up.
Yeah, and then you see it back on the market for 180. Now I see 200s. I'm like,
right, you're seeing
so
that
yeah.
everywhere.
So that's kind of I mean it's a different lens that we see through, you as a lender and me as a real estate agent. But going back to educating people, this 10-year yield ultimately has an effect on the interest rate. So the lower the 10-year yield, the lower the interest rates.
Right, and today we're at 4.66, 13 BIP drop.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're just talking like just days ago.
Like a 0.13 drop, yeah.
A couple days ago, we're at 5. I don't know why this isn't showing that.
Well, let me ask you this. I was at the dentist with my son yesterday, and I was talking to the dentist, and makes pretty good money. Him and his wife are pretty good, but he told me, he goes, we just bought a house. He goes, not a fun time to buy a house, even for someone who makes as much as a dentist does. They make good money, but he was telling me how it's just not fun. But I think even he understands, and obviously he's a little more comfortable. He's got the money, income, but I think even he understands that, it doesn't matter if we're in a low or high market, you got to buy, because ultimately you're investing in yourself, right? You're investing in the home.
Fun?
The interest rate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Some people have a nightmare experience.
That's how I took it, right? He didn't say that the house itself was bad. It was just not a fun time because the inventory is low, the interest rate's high, so you can't be too picky right now. You got to get what you got to get.
But I've seen a big shift in that, and I don't know if you've been seeing it. I've been seeing these offers come in.
They're asking for closing costs.
Every single one almost.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And they're giving it away because why? Because I think a couple weeks ago, Pablo, and I felt it, right? I'm like, hey, okay, that's not bad, right? But all of a sudden our rates went up a half a point.
Yeah.
And like basically from day to day, we're like, in a week, I'm like, that's a half a point higher. I'm like, what? And I started feeling it, right? I'm like, man, that looks high. Yeah. And then all of a sudden this week, yesterday and today, our bond market crashed, right? That thing lowered. We're at 5%. I know 4.6 doesn't sound like a lot, but it is for rates, right? Yeah. And so now we're saying, okay, how long is that going to last?
Right.
And tomorrow is a big day unemployment number, and the CPI index, consumer price index, comes up. We want to see that these higher rates are starting to combat the inflation so they don't keep raising them. Also, the rates, the Fed said yesterday, because they're seeing it working too, right? They're seeing these higher rates, and what they said is Feds leave rates unchanged.
Yep.
That came out yesterday. Why? Because they're seeing that inflation number run down. They don't want to keep raising the rates, but they have to do it to slow it down, right? You have to slow it down.
Yeah.
And hopefully we get to a point where just keep them here, or drop them even more. But I don't see a huge drop more than this year or next. I mean, I don't see the bond going to 3%, right?
So let me ask you this, because I think a lot of the objections we're getting when we're talking to our clients or potential clients, they're saying the interests are too high. They want to wait. What would you tell people right now?
That's here's what I always say, and I've told you this,
Yes.
right? The rate's the rate. Can you afford the payment? Nowadays, you can afford the payment because not like in 2006, 2005, they had these stated income loans. You said, hey, I make 10 grand a month, you'd buy a house. Now it's like you have to qualify with your income.
Right.
So they know you can afford the payment,
Correct.
right? So sometimes you have to, not go to Pismo Beach every weekend and buy a travel trailer and go, or you might have to stop some of the
budget. You have to budget
some of the stuff that doesn't matter,
Yeah.
right? You're not building wealth by going to the beach in a travel trailer,
Sure.
right? I mean, that's just an example. Hopefully no one's listening, hey, that's what I got. Well, I'm just saying as an example, right? So
you're not going to go buy that new car.
What I always say is, there's always one thing that you'll always say, I wish I would have. I should have. And that'll never be buying that travel trailer to go to Pismo, or even buying that Lamborghini car, or buying that Rolex watch. You're always going to say, I should have. And that's buying real estate. I don't care what the rate was. You're never going to say, oh man, I shouldn't have bought it because the rate was too high. You're never going to say that.
Yeah.
You're going to regret it from not buying, because what the problem is, the inventory, it's low, and you can't grow any more land. Right. It is what it is. And when the population keeps doubling, and I've heard so many things of how the population doubles, and it's going to double more in Bakersfield. Why? It's a reasonable place to live.
It's reasonable. We've got the railway that's being built, the fastest railway.
That's not coming, Pablo. They've been talking about that for
It is
40
coming.
years.
It is. I've seen the tracks.
Well, the tracks are in Wasco. They tore all those houses. I mean,
no, yeah, they're building the tracks. It's in progress. It's coming.
Okay, well, they've been saying it for years.
And
now that bullet train. That
you sound like the people in Delano when they built Walmart. They're like, yeah, Walmart's not coming. Like, they already built it. There's a lot of people naysayers about, but I think it's happening.
Well, that the train, or that in Wasco, they were going to make the hub there.
Yeah.
And they tore some of those houses down. It's 10 years ago.
Yeah. No, but they're building them. I bike ride out in those fields. I talked to someone from Washington. Actually, Sergio was with me because we're out there listing a piece of land. But yeah, I spoke to someone from Washington that got relocated for work. She lives in Rich Grove near Delano. And she's working out there in Delano on the tracks as we speak.
Oh,
and
wow. Okay.
I didn't
know that. Wow. Awesome.
Yeah. I'll take you.
Okay.
They're actually moving all the water pipes. They're moving them around.
Yeah.
Now, are they going fast? No, they're going super slow. She said 20-mile strip of rail is taking, in that particular section, took them 4 years.
Wow.
Because they have to repipe everything.
Right.
So they're moving these pipes to go underneath the rail, but it's happening, man.
Yeah, and then
when that happens, I feel like this building right here that we're in right now.
Yeah,
I feel like this is going to go up in value.
Well, yeah, because it's just supply and demand. So people are getting out of California. Why?
They're going to Bakersfield.
It's so damn expensive.
It is.
It's so damn expensive.
But Johnny, I hear that a lot. I hear people say, moving out of California, there's a homeless issue, there's this issue, there's that issue. Homelessness is everywhere. I just went to Oregon. I saw homeless.
Oh, there's homeless.
I saw people walking on the freeway out there. I went up to Washington. I saw homeless people there too. I see it everywhere. So I don't think that's not a California thing. I think that's everywhere you go.
But a lot of the people, because of the prices. So what's going to happen, right? They build that train, right? And what's been happening? What cities are going to grow where the population keeps increasing? It's not going to be LA. I mean, it is.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is. But people are going to be living out.
It's
Now
gonna
like,
be
hey,
it's gonna be
we
Bakersfield.
can go buy a house in Bakersfield for $400,000. That's relatively new, right? Let's
Yeah.
say, 2000s there, though, the 1960, 1,100 square feet, $1 million.
You can get $1 million home for way less than $1 million in
So
Bakersfield.
those guys jump on that train. They keep their job that they have there. They come to Bakersfield because
Yeah.
now to get to LA, possibly it's going to take them, I don't
Yeah.
know, maybe 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Not sure, right? So that commute is much easier, right? And they get to work, they keep their same money, they move to Bakersfield because they buy the house that's 70% cheaper, right?
Right.
People do it for a living, right?
And we're still within a couple hours of LA, the beach.
right. Yeah.
We got Vegas,
And
a
so-
straight shot.
I mean, if you can look at from 10 years ago, I mean, look at Bakersfield, man. We
Oh yeah.
the increase, like Delano and stuff like that.
The
is-
average, I think, maybe 5-6 years ago, when I was like rocking and rolling, was like 225. Now it's what, 350 average price?
right, that's the
275.
difference
gone
because
up.
that's supply and then the demand,
Yeah.
right? And so if the demand are the buyers, right? So if there's more demand and our population doubles and
Right.
now they opened up the gates to LA and that people can come here and own or occupy home. Own or occupy a property. What's going to happen?
Yeah. So you gave me some insight. I think you were the first one to share this with me. I don't know, maybe 6-7 months ago. But non-occupying FHA co-borrower. Explain that to people who don't know about this. So, like my son, for example, you were just talking to my son.
Okay, let's say someone's a student.
Yeah, just let's use my son as an example, right?
Okay.
He's
And he
doesn't make
doesn't
any
have a job.
Yep.
He goes to school, but you got to pay for your sons or daughters. Their rental might be in Bakersfield. I mean, it could be who knows
Anywhere.
where it's where they're going to go to college, or even they're not working. You want to help them out. Well, the occupying borrower, the student, does not have to be working. You can get into that house with 3.5% down.
And it doesn't have to be student, right? You're just using it as an example.
Well, I'm just giving you an
Yeah.
example,
Yep.
you know,
Could be
because that came out because of the student,
Sure.
the FHA. That's kind of how it came about, right?
Yeah.
Hey, my son's a student, doesn't work. Still have to have credit though. Still have to have a score,
Okay, yeah.
right? So the occupying borrower, the student, has to have a credit score, but does not have to have a job. You can walk into that house with 3.5% down and get the going rate.
That's awesome. And you can do up to 4 units with that.
Up to 4 units, FHA.
Yeah. So I could be a co-signer. My son's the one occupying one of those 4 units. And that's genius because, yeah, you're right. If my son was going to school, say in UCLA, I'd have to pay for rent out there.
Right.
And rather than pay for rent, throw my money away, I can invest it in 4 units.
And then you already have, the people that are going to, rent a room, right?
Then we can rent the other 3 for other students, right?
Well, you don't get to use that for income, right? As
Yeah.
if single family residence, but of course you're going to rent out the other rooms, right?
Sure.
That's how it came about. It came about with the student, the idea, hey, this guy's not working, but he should be able to buy a house if his parents or aunt and uncle are going to co-sign for him. You do have to be related.
Okay.
You just can't co-sign
Right. It has to be some kind of relationship.
non-occupying co-borrower. Right?
That's still a great deal.
It's incredible.
No taxes, no income, just credit, and someone could co-sign, relative, a dad, mom, uncle. That's awesome.
It is a good program. Definitely.
Very cool. So, what do you see happening in the next year or so in real estate?
I don't know, man. It's such a roller coaster ride. Like just this
Yeah.
week. The rates. I mean, I think the rates went down 0.5 point, and they went up 0.5 point within a week, and then so
Up and down.
it's pretty scary. I mean, it's
I know you're not like a man of predictions, but what do you predict for next year? Think rates will stabilize? Will they go up? Will they go down? We're going to be in a campaign year.
Well, so I hope they stabilize, right? And what I mean by that is quit raising the rates, right? Stop this. And, like you just said, they're not going to raise them. So hopefully they stay here and then, we start slowing down inflation. Maybe they drop a little bit, right? You drop down to the, in the 5s or maybe high 4s, right? Which is going to make a difference. I'm not predicting that. I think we're going to stay here for at least another year or two, just because our government, I hate to say I hope, because I'm in real estate. I want rates to be at 1%, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
But I think they learned a lesson. You can't leave rates at 2% for 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Now you're paying for it. So they're not going to go, hey, let's go back to 2% next year
Yeah.
or 3. It's not going to happen, right? Because we got into a mess, right? And things got super expensive because of it.
Sure.
So we're paying for it now, both in house prices. Because think, all these builders, right? You think about that. Well, the cost of construction went doubled, tripled. You got to pay your employees triple the amount, right? With the wood go up, the prices of wood, it's just unbelievable, right? Everything went up so much because now you're paying a guy, and people deserve to make, whatever, but they're making $20 an hour
Sure.
now, or 21, which isn't a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
But that offsets to the retailer because now you got to pay everybody, you got to raise your prices, right? So everything gets more expensive. So I don't think values are going to go down because we don't have no supply.
Yeah.
And until the supply supersedes the actual demand of buyers, we're not going to see prices go down. Is that going to happen?
Yeah, we've got an inventory right now of less than 1,000 homes in Bakersfield, and I was doing an interview a couple weeks ago with one of my former team leaders, and he remembers when there was 18,000 homes on the market. This was like after the crash, after all these foreclosures were hitting the market. Crazy difference,
And a lot of people, which I'm glad they did, right? We had COVID and we had some bad loans out there, right? Where, well, on the bad loans they foreclosed, but with our government protected people during COVID, right? They didn't let any foreclosures happen,
correct?
Right? Which is a natural way to increase the inventory, right? By foreclosure. But if you look, how many REOs are there out there? Not that many.
No.
Are there any what they call HUD homes? A HUD home is a FHA loan that got foreclosed on. How many? Right. I mean, all year long, there's probably been what, 10?
Yeah, not that many. So
back in the day, there was probably 10 a day. I mean, there's a lot more. So we're just seeing I think the value of property has just gone up so much. You don't want to see foreclosures.
And it'll always go up, man. I mean, real estate, that's so you know how people say hindsight is 2020?
Right.
In real estate, it's 2020 looking forward too, because we know inflation, I mean, prices will go up. They always do.
It's just supply and demand. It doesn't matter where you live, Mexico, Australia, Puerto Rico, Spain. It doesn't matter what country, what city, over time your house is going to go up in value. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's going to crash or, it doesn't. Well, they said 2006 or 7, I don't know the year. That was the peak of the real estate in Kern County. Oh my God, everything crashed. Well, everything crashed because we had shitty loans out there, Pablo. People had bad loans and they didn't buy a house to live in it. They bought a house to make money on it. Now it's a difference.
Yeah, they were flipping their homes essentially.
And they were getting interest-only loans that were fixed for 2 years and not giving any money down, right? So they lost their house, right? Because, because all these lenders, they went bankrupt, right? Because
it's crazy times. So I think basically what I'm hearing you say is that if you can afford the payment, get the home.
Well, what do you want?
And then if interest rates do come down, they can always refinance.
I wouldn't. See, I always tell people like, we just tell people they're going to go down. Well, why? I don't. That's not the way you buy a house. Hoping they're going to go down. Yeah, we want it. They're going to go down eventually, right? I mean, we know that.
You know what's crazy? I think people buy cars and they don't do it the same way, right? They never go, well, I'm going to wait for interest rates to go down on a car.
Oh, right.
I think most people are just like, no, I like the car, so I'm willing to pay.
Right.
Why not with a home?
If you can afford it. Can you afford the payment?
Can you afford it?
And we know now you can afford it because the bank makes you verify your income and your job and
so it's not like you're going to buy a house that you can't afford anyway.
And I hear it too. I hear this story quite a bit is, man, what if I lose my job?